Let's be honest with ourselves for a second. You love the idea of the end of the world. You've watched the movies, played the games, and maybe you've even bought a tactical spork off Amazon just to feel a little more prepared for the inevitable collapse of Western civilization. But here's the cold, hard reality check that Hollywood forgets to mention. When the grid goes down, the credits don't roll. The main character doesn't always find the cure. And most of you, you're not the hero. You're the loot drop. When the lights go out and stay out, when the grocery store shelves are empty, and the only thing roaming the streets is the wind and the occasional desperate screaming match over a can of dog food, the social contract isn't just broken, it's incinerated. The police aren't coming. The government is currently busy securing their own bunkers in New Zealand. And that pizza delivery guy? He's probably eating your pepperoni neighbor right now. In this vacuum, humanity splinters. We don't just become chaotic mobs. We organize into very specific archetypes. 5 of them, to be exact. And understanding which tribe you belong to is the difference between rebuilding society and becoming a cautionary tale told around a campfire by people smarter than you. Let's talk about the first group. You know them. You might even be one of them. The Hoarders. These are the bunker kings. The preppers who spent the last 20 years turning their basements into Fort Knox. While you were watching cat videos, they were vacuum sealing rice and buying enough ammunition to fight God. They sit on a mountain of freeze-dried lasagna and filtered water, smugly waiting for the sheep to die off so they can inherit the earth. On paper, it looks like a winning strategy. They have the calories, the guns, and the toilet paper. But here's the fatal flaw that basic military strategy teaches you on day 1. Static defenses are just coffins with locks. See, a bunker is a trap. You have announced to the starving, desperate world that you have everything they need to survive. You are a piñata. And in the apocalypse, everyone is holding a bat. You can't eat bullets and you can't drink gasoline. Eventually, something breaks. A solar panel cracks, a water seal fails, or you get an infection that a stash of antibiotics can't fix. And because you're locked inside a concrete box, you have zero mobility. The moment a group with bad intentions and a penchant for siege warfare finds your air vent, it's game over. Hoarders survive the initial panic, sure, but they are biologically incapable of adapting. They are guarding a museum of the old world while the new world evolves outside their blast doors. Survival rate? 6 months. Maybe a year if they don't go The Shining on each other in the dark. So, if sitting still gets you killed, what about moving? Enter Group 2, the Wanderers, the Gray Men, the Nomads. These are the people who looked at their house and realized it was just an anchor. They grabbed a bug-out bag, a reliable knife, and walked into the sunset. They are the cockroaches of the wasteland, and I mean that with the utmost respect. Cockroaches survive everything. The Wanderers' greatest asset is invisibility. They don't defend territory because they don't have any. They don't fight for resources. They scavenge what you left behind and move on before the dust settles. They sleep in abandoned Honda Civics, drink from questionable creeks, and master the art of being nowhere. But let's sprinkle some psychology on this romantic image of the lone wolf. Humans are pack animals. Our brains are hardwired for social interaction. Solitude isn't just lonely. It's lethal. When you're a wanderer, there is no one to watch your 6 while you sleep. No one to help you set a bone when you slip on wet moss. No one to tell you that the mushrooms you just ate are going to liquefy your liver. One bad flu, one infected scratch, one twisted ankle, and nature reclaims you. The wanderer buys time, dodging the violence of the collapse. But they are playing a game of Russian roulette where every day adds another bullet to the cylinder. They survive longer than the Hoarders, usually 1 to 3 years, until their luck or their sanity finally runs dry. Then, inevitably, we get to the group that makes all the noise. Group 3, the Warlords. If the Hoarder tries to wait out the storm and the Wanderer tries to dodge it, the Warlord tries to become the storm. These are the Type A personalities, the aggressive middle managers, the sociopaths who realize that without laws, morality is just a suggestion. They don't prep, they take. They organize the chaos into a hierarchy of violence. They seize the water treatment plant, the bridge, the fuel depot. They offer you a simple deal: serve us or die. And for a while, it works beautifully. They are the apex predators of the new dark age. They have the numbers, the guns, and the sheer brutality to crush resistance. But history is littered with the corpses of empires that grew too fast, and the warlord is no different. Their system is a pyramid scheme of misery. They produce nothing. They only extract. They burn through resources like a wildfire. And to keep their army loyal, they have to keep feeding them victories and loot. The moment the expansion stops, the infighting begins. Or, worse, they run into a bigger, badder warlord. It's a high-octane lifestyle that burns bright and crashes hard. Survival rate? 2 to 5 years before they are assassinated by their own lieutenant or starve in the wasteland they stripped bare. 3 groups down, 3 dead ends. The hoarder dies in a tomb of their own making. The wanderer dies alone in a ditch. And the warlord dies in a blaze of glory that achieves absolutely nothing. If you're keeping score, the human race is looking pretty screwed right now. But I promised you 5 groups, didn't I? And this is where things get interesting. This is where we stop talking about dying and start talking about living. Group 4 is the builders. While everyone else was raiding Walmarts or barricading their bathrooms, these guys were finding a patch of dirt and asking, how do we make this work? These are your engineers, your farmers, your medics, and surprisingly, your grandmas who remember how to can vegetables without giving everyone botulism. They didn't run, and they didn't hide. They dug in. They understand a fundamental truth that our modern society has forgotten. You cannot consume your way out of a collapse. You have to create. The builders are the only ones playing the long game. They're purifying water with sand and charcoal filters, generating power with rigged-up car alternators and bicycle chains, and teaching their kids how to suture a wound instead of how to edit a TikTok. They are the seeds of the next civilization. But here is the cruel irony of the builder. Being productive makes you a target. In a starving world, a thriving farm isn't a beacon of hope. It's a buffet. The warlords see them as a slave labor camp waiting to be conquered. The wanderers see them as a charity case. The hoarders just seethe with jealousy from their bunkers. Unless the builders can trade their plowshares for swords very quickly or hire some very scary security, they are just fattening the calf for the wolves. Their survival rate is technically infinite, but only if they can defend what they build. Otherwise, they're wiped out by the first guy with a rusty shotgun and a bad attitude. And finally, we have Group 5, the ghosts. You won't see them, you won't hear them. If you're lucky, you might find a footprint in the mud 3 days after they've left. These are the deep wilderness survivalists, the ones who looked at the crumbling cities and said, nope, before disappearing into the most inhospitable terrain on the map. They aren't relying on canned beans or solar panels. They've reverted to the factory settings of humanity, hunter-gatherer. They live like our ancestors did 10,000 years ago, but with better knives. The ghosts are arguably the safest group. They are invisible to warlords, irrelevant to hoarders, and unreachable to wanderers. They have opted out of the game entirely. But there's a heavy price for returning to nature. It's called stagnation. A ghost survives, but they don't advance. They don't preserve art, or science, or history. They are one bad winter or one broken leg away from extinction. And without a community, they slowly lose their humanity. They become part of the landscape wild, silent, and ultimately, alone. They will outlive almost everyone, but they won't inherit the earth. They'll just haunt it. So who actually wins? Who is the protagonist of this nightmare? If you look at the timeline, the warlords and hoarders dominate the first year. They have the reserves and the aggression. In the midterm, the wanderers and ghosts outlast the initial chaos as the static groups burn out. But in the long run, only the builders have a shot at restoring something resembling a life. However, if you want to be the one left standing when the dust settles, you can't afford to pick a team. You have to be everything. The true survivor, one who inherits the ruensis, the hybrid. This is the person who hoards supplies intelligently but knows when to abandon them. They move like a wanderer to avoid detection but can fight like a warlord when backed into a corner. They possess the skills of a builder to sustain themselves but can vanish like a ghost when the heat gets too high. In a world that has died, rigidity is rigor mortis. You need to be fluid. You need to be capable of ruthless violence and profound creation in the same afternoon. Society as you know it is a delicate hallucination held together by cheap electricity and the belief that tomorrow will be like today. When that illusion shatters, your job title, your credit score, and your follower count become meaningless. The only currency left will be your ability to adapt. So, take a look in the mirror. Are you a static target? A lonely drifter? A parasite? Or are you ready to become something else entirely? The collapse hasn't happened yet. You still have time to learn how to weld, how to shoot, and how to grow a potato. Use it wisely, because when the screen goes black, there are no respawns. Welcome to the wasteland.